Have you ever found yourself in a crowd and yet felt utterly alone? Not just lonely, but truly alone. There's a distinction here. If you identify as a Sigma, you likely recognize this feeling better than most. If this resonates with you, what I'm about to share will help clarify a lot. Many people portray Sigma males as these enigmatic lone wolves, yet hardly anyone asks the pressing question, why? Why do they usually find themselves alone? Is it a deliberate choice, a burden, or is there a deeper layer to this puzzle? The truth is multifaceted. There are 8 patterns, 8 insights that explain why many Sigma males tend to have a smaller circle than the average. And it's not what you might expect. It's not about being challenging or unsocial or incomplete. It revolves around something entirely different that becomes clear when you have the full picture. So let's dive into it. The first reason can be a bit painful. You perceive people with clarity. Have you ever noticed knowing someone's next words before they even speak? Or sensed a lie when others accepted it as truth? If you're a Sigma, this is a frequent occurrence. You detect small contradictions and behavioral patterns. There's a significant gap between their words and their actions. Once this realization hits, it's hard to ignore. It alters your interactions because now you're not just reacting to their words. You're responding to what you know is real. Most folks don't view things this way. They take statements at face value. Someone says they're okay, and they trust it. When someone makes a promise, they believe it. You were like that once, but life experiences taught you otherwise. Almost every single instance showed you that words don't always align with actions. Not always from a place of malice. Sometimes they deceive themselves first. Yet the impact is similar. Their words no longer match reality. So you've shifted your focus to observe behaviors instead of listening to excuses. And actions tell a different narrative. They reveal who's trustworthy and who isn't, who genuinely means what they say, and who simply wants you to see them in a specific light. That insight complicates relationships because you see the facade while everyone else is caught up in the performance. The Sigma mindset processes social cues through multiple lenses. While most people fixate on spoken words, your mind is busy assessing tone, body language, prior conduct, and the context unfolding around you. It's not a choice you make, it's just how your perception evolved. This system won't allow you to overlook inconsistencies, no matter how much you might wish it away. People pick up on your perceptiveness. They might not fully grasp what you see, but they sense vulnerability, and that makes them uneasy. So, they create distance, not due to dislike, but because being around you forces them to confront their authenticity. Here's the second reason rarely mentioned. You've learned too well that people depart. Maybe your parents weren't together. Perhaps you moved around as a child. Maybe an important person in your life vanished unexpectedly. Whatever the situation, you discovered that people don't always remain. Not always, and sometimes not even when they give their word. That lesson sticks with you, reshaping how you bond with others. Does this mean you won't ever plan long-term connections? Nope, you do, but it's a gradual process. You assess that individual multiple times, not because you want to be challenging, but because life taught you that words hold little value while actions reveal true intentions. Each time you rushed into trust, it backfired. That's why you take a step back now. You observe longer. You validate before committing. Others don't operate this way. They rush in, forming bonds quickly and making plans with individuals they barely know. Sometimes it works for them, and sometimes it doesn't. But you've witnessed how often such quick connections fade or scatter once the excitement diminishes. So now you're patient. Your approach comes not from fear, but from knowing trust requires evidence. This notion can unsettle others. They sense that you're cautious, not diving in head first. Some understand your stance, others withdraw, but you're okay with that. You'd rather part ways with those who are hasty than risk being let down by the unreliable. The Sigma attachment style often stems from early inconsistency. When you couldn't predict if your surroundings would be secure or chaotic, your mind adapted by becoming highly attentive to commitment. You aren't pushing people away, you're simply running a background check, and that examination takes time. The irony is that you don't intend to keep people at bay forever. You aim to ensure that when you finally let them in, they're genuinely worth the potential risk. But people often wander off when they sense they're being evaluated. So the very protective instinct meant to keep you secure sometimes leads to the outcomes you hope to avoid. The third reason marks a notable change. You've outgrown the need for shallow friendships. Most bonds rely on shared experiences. You play the same sport, work together, or enjoy similar hangouts. That's the common thread. It works fine until one person evolves. Maybe you stop drinking, or switch jobs, or simply grow tired of the same night out. Suddenly, the friendship loses its framework. Without that foundation, it crumbles. You probably recognize this during your mid-20s. Friends from high school or college started drifting away, not because anyone did something wrong. It's just that the things bonding you became irrelevant. While others hurried to replace those ties with new superficial ones, you didn't. You realized something important. Having 10 friends with whom you can't discuss anything meaningful is worse than being alone. Most people wouldn't make this exchange. They'd rather hold on to connections to avoid feeling isolated, even when deep down they realize the connection lacks substance. But eventually, you start realizing that not everyone in your circle enhances your life. Some drain your energy. Some subtly hinder your growth. Others you've simply outgrown. Perhaps you've matured. Perhaps something within you has shifted. Have you ever sensed that your own circle is holding you back without even realizing it? You don't yearn for solitude, you long for depth. You want engaging conversations that ignite ideas, relationships that challenge you, connections that foster genuine growth. Yet those are few and far between. When you grasp that, you stop chasing numbers and instead conserve your energy for those who uplift you. What's intriguing is that you're not in a rush to fill that gap. You're not desperately seeking new pals or trying to find your counterpart. The truth is, finding someone who is genuine in all they say is rare, almost impossible. You'd prefer to wait for that rarity than settle for something that feels like a gamble with your time and energy. This isn't about being finicky, it's about safeguarding what authentic connections remain for you. The fourth reason presents an interesting twist. You've ceased seeking approval. Every social group has unspoken guidelines. Laugh at this, agree with that, avoid confronting certain individuals. It's a performance, and most participate without even realizing it. You once played along too, until one day you just couldn't anymore. Maybe you got weary, or perhaps you simply lost the motivation to pretend. Either way, you opted out of the game. That's when some individuals labeled you difficult, intense, or overly serious. What they truly mean is you stopped offering them comfort. You stopped chuckling at unfunny jokes. You stopped acquiescing to viewpoints you didn't agree with. You stopped being the version of yourself that kept the social dynamics smooth. Groups don't appreciate that. They don't expel you openly. Rather, they just stop inviting you, calling, or checking in. Eventually, you realize you're no longer part of anything. Here's what many overlook about being a Sigma. Authenticity comes with a price. It costs you access. The more genuine you become, the fewer places you can comfortably fit into. Most environments aren't designed for raw honesty. They're created for comfort. And comfort necessitates a degree of pretense. When your mind values freedom more than belonging, faking it feels threatening to your identity. It's not that you can't mask, it's just that masking triggers stress, making social interactions feel risky. You're not antisocial, nor are you against relationships or parenting. But for any of these to work, everything must align: the values, the honesty, the depth. Otherwise, it feels like a roll of the dice with your life. You've witnessed too many people lose that bet to leap in without thought. The fifth reason might resonate with you for a long time. You shy away from tribal thinking. Humans are naturally tribal. They pick a side, defend their own, and attack others. It's a survival tactic for groups. However, as a Sigma, you don't function that way. You don't belong to just one side. Or, if you do, you're equally critical of it as the opposing view. This creates tension and tribal unity. They demand loyalty while you value independent thought. Have you ever lost friends simply for not siding with them? You probably have. When a controversial topic arises and you strive to consider both perspectives, suddenly you're the enemy. Not because you were wrong, but because you chose to think for yourself. Tribes penalize that behavior. The loneliest stance in any discussion is being in the middle. Both sides assume you oppose them. But you aren't against anyone. You're merely trying to maintain clarity. Yet, clear thinking feels like treachery to those who need you to choose a side. So they isolate you, label you as indecisive or uncommitted to rationalize your refusal to conform. The Sigma mindset operates with lower sensitivity to in-group favoritism. This psychological tendency causes most people to favor their own group and distrust outsiders automatically. Your brain doesn't follow that pattern as intensely. So while others feel a sense of belonging when joining a tribe, you feel suffocated, sacrificing your independent thinking for the mirage of safety. You're not hesitant to choose a side. You fear making the wrong choice. The only way to dodge that mistake is by staying receptive to the possibility of being incorrect. Flexibility is essential, but can be misread as weakness in tribal environments. Thus, you often find yourself outside of every tribe. This usually results in having fewer connections, since most relationships stem from tribal bonds, and you've opted not to engage. The sixth reason often goes unnoticed by others. You value truth more than comfort. Most discussions revolve around what feels good. People say things to please others, avoiding contentious topics. They strive for harmony through light conversation. Yet, with a Sigma personality, you lean toward honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, and especially when it is. You probably adopted this approach when you recognized that sidestepping difficult discussions merely postpones issues without resolving them. So you began addressing matters openly, naming tensions rather than ignoring them, asking tough questions. This habit made you the person who leaves others feeling uncomfortable, the one who won't let go of unresolved tension. Why do you act this way? Here's what many fail to grasp. You aren't attempting to stir awkwardness. You simply want to cultivate authenticity. Real challenges demand real discussions, and those discussions often come with discomfort. However, that unease doesn't equate to harm. Sometimes discomfort offers the clearest path to understanding. For the Sigma, unresolved tensions act like constant stress signals. People can generally forget and move forward. You can't. Those unresolved issues cling to your mind like open tasks draining your energy. So you address them not to be troublesome, but to close the loop so that you can finally relax. Over time, people distance themselves from you. They stop reaching out when seeking guidance. They avoid inviting you to gatherings, wishing to keep things uncomplicated, knowing you won't simply skate over the surface. You'll inevitably ask the tough questions that everyone pretends don't exist. While that can be beneficial, it often isn't enjoyable, and people tend to prioritize fun over utility. You aren't against fun or relaxation. You simply need a solid foundation first. Most individuals, however, prefer to skip the groundwork and dive straight into the fun side. The seventh reason highlights a significant difference. You don't crave constant validation. Most social exchanges revolve around mutual validation. You compliment me, I compliment you. You back my decisions, I do the same. It's a cycle that keeps relationships vibrant. But as a Sigma, you derive validation from within. You recognize your worth without relying on others to affirm it. That independence is empowering, but can also render you irrelevant to those who thrive on consistent feedback. Reflect on how many friendships revolve around seeking approval. Should I take this job? Do I look good? Was I justified in feeling that way? They aren't truly inquiring, they're looking for reassurances. When you don't engage in that cycle and don't readily offer validation, the relationship begins to lose its purpose. You don't come across as uncaring, you're simply being honest. If someone seeks your opinion, you provide it candidly, not to wound them. You believe anything less feels disingenuous. However, not everyone desires straightforward responses. They seek agreement, even when it's insincere. You can't compromise your integrity, so they slowly stop asking questions. Once that dialogue diminishes, the friendship fades. Why does external validation feel hollow for you? For Sigma types, self-worth stems from internal benchmarks, not outside feedback. While most people's self-esteem relies on social approval, yours hinges on authenticity and competence. You evaluate yourself based on your standards, not others' views. This foundation provides stability, but it often renders you incompatible with the validation-driven relationships many rely on. This brings us to the 8th reason. You've let go of chasing numbers and focus on preserving quality. This is what Sigma males apart from those who find themselves alone yet eager for connection. You've made peace with solitude. You realize being alone is more valuable than being surrounded by people who don't understand you. It's better than merely performing. Better than pretending. Better than being partially engaged in settings that demand you to be disingenuous. Some of you may still have an old close friend or two, but not every Sigma man is so fortunate, and that's perfectly fine. This doesn't imply that all Sigma males lack social circles. It just means you approach relationships more cautiously. The likelihood of having fewer meaningful bonds is higher for your personality type. And you've accepted this trade-off because you'd rather have one authentic friend, or none at all, than 10 insincere ones. That understanding wasn't easy to attain. You probably resisted it for years, striving to fit in, being lighter, or caring about matters that bored you, while laughing at jokes that didn't amuse you. But eventually, weariness set in, and you realized that the exhaustion of faking it outweighed the peace that comes with being genuine. Thus, you chose authenticity, even if it meant being pickier about who gains access to you. People may claim you're missing out, that you should have more in your life because connection is crucial to fulfillment. They might be correct in valuing connection, but their interpretation comes at a cost you refuse to bear. It demands your authenticity, your peace, and your ability to be yourself without filters. You've decided that these aspects matter more than simply having a long contact list. Here you are, possibly with just a couple of reliable individuals in your corner, or still searching for those connections. Regardless, you're not compromising. You're not filling your life with acquaintances for the sake of appearing busy or feeling normal. You're forging something authentic, even if it requires more time. Some would label that as being overly choosy. You define it as setting standards that are more challenging to uphold than many realize. Yet what you create is entirely yours. At the very least, it's authentic. And in a world of pretense, genuine connections are the only ones worth having. You're not rejecting connection. You're not fleeing from love, friendship, or building something meaningful with others. You just recognize that abundance doesn't automatically equate to quality. You're willing to wait no matter how long it takes to discover the right connections, even if that means journeying alone until then. If you've made it to this point, it's no coincidence. Many would have left after a couple of minutes. But you've stayed because you want to comprehend, not just hear it, but genuinely absorb it. That already places you ahead of 96% of people who never question their feelings. So here's my question. If you had to select just one reason that explains why you have fewer people around you, which would it be? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and join the largest Sigma community on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and if you want to dive deeper, Check out the video on the screen right now.